Hello internet, my name's Lave, and this week I watched The Legend of Tarzan, the latest incarnation of Edgar Rice Burrough's Tarzan of the Apes. So this film is directed by David Yates, who's responsible for some of the Harry Potter films, and I could really see some of the questions and the dilemmas that him and the writers had to tackle before they made this film. Namely, how do they tell the story of Tarzan, a character which is so well known throughout the world, and make it interesting and fun. Now, I wouldn't mind betting that they looked for inspiration in another film which tackled a similar problem, namely Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins. Essentially, they had the same problem. They've got to tell the origin story which everyone already knows. You can really see the influences there and that they've structured it in the same way by utilising flashbacks. The difference is with Batman Begins, Christopher Nolan utilises the flashbacks to develop his characters and give them an arc and show their motivations. With Tarzan, however, you can see that they've tried to do the same thing, and you do see the origins of him being adopted by the gorillas and growing up with them, but essentially it's just there for a plot point which I can't spoil here. But it also adopts a similar tone to Batman Begins in that it's darker and gritty and not as fun as I thought it was going to be for a Tarzan film. However, I do like the fact that they've set it in the late 19th century, so the flashbacks go back to 1870s and then it flashes forward to 1890s with Tarzan now living in London with Jane Porter. So Alexander Skarsgård plays Tarzan and we find him in London. I wouldn't say he's domesticated, but he's become accustomed to London life. For the most part, I really liked him as Tarzan. He's a bit moodier than I thought he was going to be, but when he really gets into the swing of things, no pun intended, he's really good. There were a couple of times, however, when his British accent wavered a little bit. There were a couple of times where I thought I was listening to his dad, Stellan Skarsgård, but for the most part, I thought he was a good Tarzan. So while he's living his life in London with his wife, Jane, the Belgians are actually colonising the Congo under the orders of King Leopold. They're being led by Christoph Waltz's character Leon Rom. Now, Christoph Waltz's performance is fine, but the problem is you have literally seen it in Inglourious Bastards and Inspector. The guy is in real danger of becoming typecast, and I'd like to see him try something new. Thinking about it, he's probably aware of it and just doesn't care. He's getting a ton of money. So Rom is exploring and conquering the Congo, and in an interesting turn of events, he needs Tarzan to come back to complete his objective. Again, I can't spoil it here, but it did surprise me. Tarzan is actually reluctant to go back, but is convinced by Jane, who also grew up in the Congo. She wants to get back to what she considers her home. Jane is played by Margot Robbie, and now I thought her performance was fine, but what I find interesting about her is that in the marketing, they really try to make out that she's not the damsel in distress. But when you really think about it, she is kidnapped by Rom, and although she's very tenacious and she does almost escape, she really is a damsel in distress and has to rely on Tarzan to save her. Yeah. Plus, I also did think that she looked a little bit like a beach babe in 19th century fancy dress. I kind of let that one slide, but I can't say the same for Samuel L. Jackson's character. He just felt completely out of place. So he plays an American called George Washington, and he suspects that the Belgians are enslaving the natives, and the only way that he can get there is by tagging along with Tarzan and Jane. Now, while he does have some of the best lines, in fact, I think he has the only joke in the film, it really does feel like Samuel L. Jackson is just playing himself. It feels like he just kind of wandered onto set and went, "The path of the righteous Tarzan is beset on all sides by the inequities of the selfish and the tyranny of evil Belgians." It's really weird, but then simultaneously he does have some of the best bits in it. It really feels like he's just playing Samuel L. Jackson. He doesn't feel of his time at all. The CGI is a bit unbalanced as well. There are certain times when you can see the transition from location shooting to green screen shots, which is a real shame because the cinematography in general is actually pretty good, and I just wish they were able to blend between the two more seamlessly. The CG animals as well, I thought there were parts where it was okay, other parts not so much. The problem is the bar's been set so high with Dawn of the Planet of the Apes and The Jungle Book, which came out this year, and it's not on par with them. But I did like the way that Tarzan interacts with the animals, and there were a couple of emotional scenes there which I can't divulge because of spoilers. I like the fact that he's sort of a legend and people question if he can really talk to the animals. They kind of insinuate that he understands them, and there is a couple of glimpses where you do see him kind of mimic a bird. I thought that was cool. But overall, I can't help but feel a little bit underwhelmed with this film. Such a shame, because I think there is a good film in there somewhere. So that's my thoughts on The Legend of Tarzan, and pause the video now if you want to take a closer look at my enjoyment tracker. As you can see from my enjoyment tracker, you can see that I felt that this film was starting to go somewhere, but it never really delivered. I think the real reason why I feel a bit underwhelmed with this film is because I don't actually feel like I got to see much of Tarzan doing his thing. For sure, there are some clips of him swinging through the trees, but it's very fleeting, and I think it only really happens twice. And likewise with his iconic "oh," it happens twice, but he's always off camera. Maybe if we'd seen a bit more of it, it would have been a bit more fun. I don't think this film was as fun as it should have been. It does take itself a little bit too seriously. If you're a fan of Tarzan, maybe there's enough in there for you to enjoy, but I'd be interested to know if you are a fan of Tarzan and you have seen this, let me know if you thought they showed enough of Tarzan doing what Tarzan does. So that's my thoughts on Tarzan, and thanks very much for watching. If you liked the video, like it. If you didn't like it, dislike it. Either way, tell me in the comments. Subscribe.